Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
In the intellectual firmament of the earlier 18th century, the new analysis of infinitesimals, while ascendant in its predictive power, rested upon foundations many found philosophically unstable. The calculus, a creation of Isaac Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, had unlocked the secrets of planetary motion and the subtle geometries of curves, yet its core concept seemed to traffic in logical phantoms. It was into this charged atmosphere of profound discovery and equally profound skepticism that Colin Maclaurin, the prodigious Scottish mathematician and intellectual heir to Newton, conceived his monumental work. The 1742 publication, a Treatise of Fluxions, stands as a singular achievement in the history of mathematics, a 2-volume, 900-page testament to the pursuit of absolute logical certainty. It is less a textbook and more a grand edifice, constructed to defend the Newtonian method of fluxions against its most eloquent and formidable critic, Bishop George Berkeley, and in so doing, to ground the calculus in the unassailable rigor of ancient Greek geometry. The genesis of the treatise is inseparable from the publication of Berkeley's 1734 polemic. The analyst, with devastating wit and philosophical acumen, Berkeley had assailed the logic of both fluxions and differentials. He famously derided the vanishing increments, the ultimate ratios of evanescent quantities, as the ghosts of departed quantities. For Berkeley, the process of finding a derivative involved a logical fallacy. One first assumes a small, finite increment exists to perform algebraic manipulation, and then one assumes that same increment is zero to obtain the final result. This, he added, was a flagrant violation of the law non contradict. The remarkable accuracy of calculus was, in his view, the result of a compensation of errors, a fortuitous stumbling into truth through a sequence of fallacious steps. This critique struck at the very heart of the Enlightenment's confidence in mathematical reason, for a discipline whose authority derived from its supposed infallibility. Berkeley's accusations were deeply unsettling. Maclaurin, a staunch disciple of Newton and occupant of a prestigious chair at the University of Edinburgh, felt this attack as a personal and national affront to the legacy of his mentor. His response was conceived on a scale commensurate with the challenge, aiming to rebuild the entire structure of fluxions upon a foundation that Berkeley himself, a classicist, would be forced to respect the method of exhaustion and the rigorous proportion theory of Eudoxus, as perfected by Archimedes. The work itself is a masterful, if formidable, exposition. Maclaurin deliberately eschews the convenient, algebraic shorthand of Leibnizian calculus, which was already gaining dominance on the European continent. He likewise avoids the very infinitesimal concepts from Newton's own initial work that Berkeley had targeted. Instead, Maclaurin anchors his entire system in kinematically and geometrically intuitive ideas. A fluent quantity, or a variable, is conceived as being generated by a continuous motion. A fluxion is defined as the velocity of this generation. Critically, these velocities are finite and are determined not by setting an increment to zero, but by comparing the motion of one generating point with another. The core of his rigorous approach lies in Book 1, where he methodically demonstrates the fundamental rules of calculus using impeccably classical geometric arguments to find the fluxion of a rectangle with sides x and y. For example, he presents a geometric construction and then applies a limiting argument in the style of Archimedes, showing that the ratio of the increment of the area to the increment of time approaches the value x times the fluxion of y plus y times the fluxion of x. He demonstrates that any potential error in the approximation can be made smaller than any pre-assigned quantity, a clear precursor to the epsilon delta definitions that would finally bring rigor to analysis over a century later with the work of Karl Weierstrass. This method, while painstakingly verbose and demanding immense concentration from the reader, succeeded in its primary objective. It derived the rules of calculus without recourse to the ghosts of departed quantities. Beyond its foundational defence, the treatise contains some of Maclaurin's most enduring and original contributions to mathematical science. The most celebrated of these is the theorem for expanding functions into infinite power series, now universally known as the Maclaurin series, while a specific case of the more general Taylor series, and preceded by similar discoveries by James Stirling. Maclaurin's derivation was uniquely rigorous for its time and presented as a cornerstone of his fluxional method. He presented the expansion of a function f of x as the sum of a series of terms f of 0, plus x times the first fluxion of f evaluated at 0, plus x squared divided by 2 factorial times the second fluxion of f at 0, and so on. This tool was of immense practical and theoretical power, allowing for the approximation of transcendental functions and the integration of complex expressions, operating on their simpler series representations. Its inclusion was a demonstration that his rigorous geometric approach sacrificed no computational power. It could yield fruits just as rich as the algebraically nimbler continental methods. Another profound insight embedded within the treatise is the method now known as the Maclaurin-Cauchy integral test for the convergence of an infinite series. Here, Maclaurin forged a fundamental link between the discrete summation of a series and the continuous area under a curve. He demonstrated that for a positive, decreasing function f, the infinite series formed by the sum of f of n, for n from 1 to infinity converges, if, and only if the improper integral of f of x with respect to x from 1 to infinity is finite. This was a result of extraordinary depth, providing one of the most powerful tools for determining the behavior of infinite series and presaging the deep connections between discrete and continuous mathematics that would become a central theme of modern analysis. He applied this test with great effect, establishing a convergence or divergence of numerous important series and further showcasing the analytical strength of his system. The work showcased his ability to move seamlessly from the most abstract foundations to the most concrete, analytical tools. The treatise was far from a purely theoretical exercise. Maclaurin's ultimate goal was to vindicate Newtonian science, and this required demonstrating the power of fluxions to solve real, challenging problems in the physical world. The crowning achievement of the work in this regard is his complete solution to the problem of the gravitational attraction of a homogeneous ellipsoid. This was a problem of immense importance for the physics of the era, crucial for understanding the shape of the Earth and other celestial bodies. Newton himself had struggled with it, providing a partial solution in his Principia. Maclaurin, using his sophisticated geometric and fluxional techniques, provided the first complete and correct solution. He proved that the gravitational force exerted by two confocal ellipsoids at an external point is in the same direction and proportional to their masses. Perhaps more elegantly, he furnished the beautiful theorem that the gravitational attraction at any point inside a homogeneous ellipsoidal shell is precisely zero. This result, a cornerstone of potential theory, was a stunning display of the practical utility of his methods and served as irrefutable proof that the House of Newton, when built with the proper rigorous tools, could solve problems that had resisted all previous attempts. This section of the treatise had a direct and immediate impact, influencing the work of continental mathematicians like Alexis Claude Clairaut and Jean Le Rond de L'Alembert in their own investigations into the figure of the Earth. The reception of a treatise of fluxions was complex and reveals much about the state of 18th century mathematics. Within Great Britain, it was hailed as a masterpiece. It became the definitive work on calculus, the standard text at Cambridge and other universities for nearly a century. Its effect, however, was paradoxical. In its magnificent success at establishing a defensible Newtonian orthodoxy, it encased British mathematics in a beautiful but stifling prison of geometric verbosity. The preference for the cumbersome fluxional notation and the demanding geometric proofs of Maclaurin meant that British mathematicians became increasingly isolated from the rapid, powerful developments occurring on the continent. Mathematicians like Leonhard Euler, Joseph Louis Lagrange, and the Bernoulli family were forging ahead with the Leibnizian notation and a more purely algebraic approach to analysis, a methodology that was more efficient, suggestive, and ultimately more fruitful for discovery. There is a certain historical irony in the fact that Maclaurin's heroic effort to secure Newton's legacy contributed to its temporary stagnation in his own country. On the continent, the treatise was received with respect for its rigor but with little desire for its methods. D'Alembert praised it as a work that left nothing to be desired in its exactitude but found its geometric approach archaic and impractical. The continental analysts understood what Maclaurin was attempting. They too were concerned with the foundations of their subject. Lagrange, in particular, would later attempt his own foundational project in his 1797 work, Théorie des fonctions analytiques, which sought to ground calculus entirely in the algebra of power series, a concept intimately related to the Maclaurin series, yet pursued without any geometric crutches. In a sense, Lagrange was Maclaurin's spiritual successor in his quest for rigor, though he chose a different path toward that goal. The treatise was thus admired from a distance, a formidable monument to a method that the rest of Europe was already leaving behind. The long-term legacy of the work is nuanced. It failed in its ambition to make the geometric method the permanent foundation for analysis. The future of mathematics lay with the algebraic and symbolic approach of Leibniz and Euler, which, despite its initial philosophical vulnerabilities, proved to be a far more powerful engine of discovery. The rigor that Maclaurin so desperately sought for calculus would eventually be supplied in the 19th century, but it would come through the precise language of limits, epsilons, and deltas developed by Augustin Louis Cauchy and Weierstrass, a vindication of Maclaurin's foundational anxieties achieved through the very algebraic tradition his work stood against. Yet, the specific contributions within the treatise endured. The Maclaurin series remains a fundamental tool of all science and engineering. The integral test is a standard element of any university course on calculus. His work on gravitational potential laid the groundwork for major developments in mathematical physics by figures like Pierre-Simon Laplace and Simeon Denis Poisson. In conclusion, the Treatise of Fluxions is a work of profound intellectual character and historical significance. It was born of controversy, crafted with the precision of a classical geometer, and presented as the definitive statement of the Newtonian worldview. Colin Maclaurin succeeded completely in his stated goal. He constructed a version of the calculus that was logically unimpeachable to an 18th century mind, free from the spectral infinitesimals that so troubled Bishop Berkeley. He demonstrated its power through the introduction of lasting analytical tools and the solution of one of the most challenging physical problems of his day. In doing so, he created a work of immense intellectual beauty and integrity. It stands as a glorious fossil of a particular moment in scientific thought, perfectly preserved and revealing in every detail the structure of the mathematical world it inhabited. While the evolutionary path of mathematics ultimately took a different turn, the treatise remains a towering monument, a testament to the idea that the pursuit of truth requires not only discovery but also the courage to build an unshakable foundation upon which those discoveries can securely rest.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.